Hi, everybody, and welcome to the SSF webinar entitled How to Stand Out in the Hunt for Bilingual Talent in Healthcare. My name is Nathalie Boivin. I am a knowledge mobilization officer with Société Santé en Français, and I will be your host today. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land where I am is a traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq and Maliseet peoples. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which the Maliseet and Mi'kmaq peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. I'm grateful to the Maliseet and Mi'kmaq peoples for their hospitality on these unceded territory. First, a few words from Société Santé en Français. Société Santé en Français is a national group of 16 provincial, territorial, and regional networks that are committed to improving the health of all Francophones and Acadians living in minority communities in Canada through greater access to quality health care services in their language. Webinar objectives are as follows: improve access to new information, facilitate evidence-based decision-making, and foster interactions between information providers and users. These webinars are made possible with the financial contribution of Health Canada. Today, we have two speakers. Firstly, Maurice LeMaire. Maurice LeMaire has close to 20 years of human resources leadership and consulting experience globally in diverse industries, Fortune-ranked companies, and Canadian top 10 employers, always striving to find a strategic balance between human capital and business performance. His focus are human resources, business transformation, talent management strategy, as well as governance. Perfectly trilingual in French, English, and Spanish, Maurice positions himself as a resource to people, enabling their contributions by creating a strong relationships, developing and coaching talent, as well as finding opportunities for innovation and strategies that add long-term value. Maurice holds a bachelor degree in commerce from the Telfair School of Management at Université of Ottawa, as well as a certificate in industrial relations from Université Laval. He's also a certified human resource leader from HRPA in Ontario and a senior certified professional from the Society for Human Resource Management in the US, SHRM-SCP. Our second speaker today is Geneviève Laferrière. Geneviève is passionate about health equity and quality service delivery for all. With 15 years of experience in this sector, Geneviève's work focuses primarily on knowledge mobilization and establishing the right partnerships to support winning conditions for person-centered Francophone language service delivery at the regional, provincial, and national levels. Geneviève is responsible for Equity Link, a national resource for health providers to build linguistic competency within diverse health systems, bilingual healthcare workforce strategies, and long-term care models for Francophones. Geneviève holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the Telfair School of Management at Université of Ottawa, with a specialization in international management, a project management certificate from La Cité Collégiale, and a change management certificate from CHA Learning. Before we go any further, I would like to remind everybody that you are on mute. However, we want to hear from you throughout this webinar. There's different ways for you to participate and interact with us. During the presentation, you can use either the chat box or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. As well, there will be different polls during the sessions. So talking about polls, we will launch a first poll. You will see it appearing on your screen right now. So you will see the polls. The first question is as follows. What motivated your participation in today's webinar? There's a single choice option for question 1. Was it a general curiosity about the topic, the desire to discover new tools, the opportunity to improve your current ways of doing things, or is it other? And if so, please specify using the chat box. Question number 2. In which sectors do you work? Now, there's multiple choices you can use. So the choices are human resources, health and social services, post-secondary training, community sector, or other. Again, you follow the recipe, use the chat box to specify. Question number 3, again, you can opt for multiple choices in this answer. The question is, what is your experience with recruiting and retaining bilingual staff? Very experienced, moderate, some, very little, not at all, or other. Please specify using the chat box. And finally, the number 4 question is, what is your biggest challenge in attracting and retaining bilingual staff? Again, multiple choice of answer possible. So is it that you have a lack of clinically qualified candidates, a lack of linguistically qualified candidates, a high turnover rate, competitive wages, benefits, or is it other? So please, after you've answered all the questions, just click submit. Once 70% of you in attendance today will have answered, then we will share the answers to everybody. And talking about everybody, we're very happy to have a nice audience today of people from Newfoundland, Labrador, New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, as well as participants from out of the country, specifically USA and Côte d'Ivoire. So we're very happy to welcome all of you today. So do we have answers now to the polls? Let's see them on the screen. So question number 1, your motivation today. 46% of you are looking at opportunity to improve your current ways of doing things. 44% of you desire to discover more tools. And 8% have a general curiosity, and 3% are it's other motivation. Question number 2, referring to sectors of work. So 56% of you work in human resources in your organization, 41% in health and social services. Thank you very much. It gives speakers a very good idea of who are behind the screen today. And in terms of experience, 31% of you have some experience recruiting and retaining bilingual staff. 28% of you have moderate experience, and 15% have either a lot of experience or very little. And finally, the question number 4 had to do with your biggest challenge in attracting and retaining bilingual staff. And the number 1 challenge was a lack of linguistically qualified candidates for 72% of you. Lack of clinically qualified candidates, 36% of you, and then competitive wages, benefits, 23% of you, high turnover rate, 18%, and other for 3%. So thank you very much for your participation today. And now it's time for our speakers, Mrs. Geneviève Laferrière and Mr. Maurice LeMaire.
Thank you very much, Natalie, for that introduction, and thank you for everyone who participated in the polls today. It does give us a very good idea of who's attending and really enables us to better structure the webinar to meet your needs. So we understand that health human resources are really at the heart of service delivery. We need people to offer services, to offer diagnoses, to conduct tests. So it is very, very important to have adequate number of staff, which we know is a huge challenge in these current days and times. And when we add the additional criteria of requiring bilingual human resources, we add to the complexity and add to the challenge of finding that needle in the haystack to really fit the profile of the position that you're trying to fill. So we are really here to give you an idea of how Equity Link, and specifically the new tool that we launched last week, can help organizations do so. So human resources have really been an issue for a really long time in our organization and within the healthcare movement. So we have looked at this issue for the past 10 to 20 years and really specifically delved down into looking at the information that was available about 10 years ago when we conducted a study to really see how organizations were successfully recruiting bilingual candidates, what were their challenges, and what were the best service models out there. So we worked at gathering the information and develop a framework for the recruitment and retention of bilingual health human resources, which was launched in a platform format back in 2017. Now, if we fast forward 5 years, the labor market has greatly changed. We have endured a pandemic, acute staff shortages across the country. So we really needed to update the strategies that were suggested in our online resource to support organizations facing the current context and challenges. So we were able to join up with the Equity Link platform, which provides all the resources that organizations require to support planning, implementing, and evaluating their bilingual services, so specifically targeting French language service delivery. So really build in with that capacity. So we were able to really focus on talent retention and what is required to attract and retain bilingual talent. All that with the support of a new project from Société Santé en Français called Santé Immigration Francophone, or Francophone Immigration Health Initiative, which really helped build in equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility within the human resources component and through the tools that were provided. So the tool was launched last week. We hope you had the chance to look at it. If not, go on the website, go on Equity Link, look at the resource and find the new Bilingual Health Workforce Strategy 2.0, which Maurice will give you a broader overview today. And also note that during the Rendez-vous Santé en Français, we will be offering a hands-on workshop with a panel of experts to really look at how to implement and adapt the tools within your specific context. So if you haven't had the chance, please register for the conference, register for the workshop on November 10th called Dealing with Bilingual Health Workforce Shortages, How to Adapt to These Challenging Times. And now, well, off to you, Maurice, to go over the tool and the new model that is being proposed with the tools.
Perfect, super. Thank you, Geneviève, and good day, everyone. I hope you're all doing fantastic. And if you're not yet at the fantastic stage of your day, we hope that the next hour will help you advance towards 5 p.m., right? And so hopefully we'll have some contribution to whatever fantastic is for you. Very happy to be here today. As you saw probably in the invite, one of my colleagues was supposed to be here, Julio Chicora. Unfortunately, he cannot make it, so he sent his regards to everybody. That means that he won't be here to challenge me. So whatever I say, especially for my fellow HR practitioners, you have to take my word for it. So, but hopefully we'll get to the good content that you're looking for. And I was looking at a little bit at the also the poll results, so very interesting. And then again, I hope to be able to provide you what you are hoping to get from the webinar. So thank again for taking the time to listen to us. Before we get started into the content, I wanted to take some time to quickly present the firm and provide you an idea as to how the resource that's currently mine came to be. I'll make that connection from who we are at SIA and what we wanted to bring to this. So in essence, we're a global firm with about 2,700 employees in 40 offices across 19 countries. We have three main brands from which our clients engage with us. So we have the SIA Partners, which I'm part of, which provides a general management consulting services. Then we have our SIA Experience, which is collaborative design agency. They can do the creative design, they do design thinking, collective intelligence. So it's really creative ways of doing things. And then we also have HECA AI, which is our AI, data science, and quantitative solutions. So we have a team of data scientists. We have an AI platform and lots of analytics capabilities. What we do with all of that is that no matter where, from which part our clients engage with us, we use and leverage the other brands. So we have engagements where we have an HR engagement, for example, we have data to look. I would go and ask the HECA team to, get us some insight, and I can ask also RC Experience to design very, engaging workshops. So it's what we call augmented consulting, and all of that is supported by our Consulting for Good framework, which is about using CSR for organizations to make sure that we progress towards the right direction. Why again, it's really how we leverage our brands for our clients. So in Canada, we have 6 offices, over 250 consultants in these in these provinces. What makes us distinctive is really the fact that we are colleague-centric. So we ensure that all people involved, whether it's from our side or from the client, owns the project, and that helps building the organizational capabilities. So it's not just we go and do change, it's also the people in the organization will own the change. We also tailor our approach. We know the methods, we know leading practice and all that, but what ultimately is the goal is that it suits the needs of the client. So we will deliver what best fits what the client needs are. And also the last one is that we really rely on our network. It's easy for a Canadian team to access our global expertise, so we don't need a PO, we don't need to ask permission or paperwork. We simply send an email, and within hours we have a response, which sometimes brings our colleagues to our international colleagues to our Canadian engagement. So it's the advantage of our size. We're not too big, but yet not too small. So based on the above, the approach that we wanted to take to revamp a little bit the resource was to look at the current socioeconomical context. And I'll get to that a little bit into the introduction. But it was also about providing some effective ideas on how to better attract and retain bilingual talent. We have done work on attracting and retention, but then the challenge here was, well, what do we do about specifically bilingual talent? So again, as of today, you will see the objective of today's is to provide an overview of the resource. You have more material in the resource. It's, there's a lot of material in there. You have a lot of reading that you can do. And we understand that it's content heavy. And you will also see that a little bit into this presentation. However, there are 2 key elements that I want to mention to you before we start and to put you at ease. Is one, is that whatever we suggest to you here can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. And we'll go through that as we look at the sections. The second piece is that we presented the resource based on the life cycle of the employees. You can approach that from a business process side or from an employee experience side. And again, you'll see that illustration in a few minutes. But again, it's really for you to be able to look into that. And nothing here is linear. You can take the content is that we're presenting, the tools in the resource. You can take it from anywhere you are located in your organization, based on your capabilities, based on your maturity levels, based on the time you have. The keys for it's really this is intended to guide you, right? And provide you some tools that you can take, adapt to your specific needs. And speaking of tools, we're showing one or two during the presentations, and we'll have some others in the resources that are available to you. So again, feel free to use them as you see fit and adapt them to your organization. And as mentioned, there will also be a workshop on November 10th. So we will take one tool as requested by, actually we may take more than one depending on how many people we are, but we will go in groups and you will be able to develop those for your organization specifically with key questions that we will be asking. So we will be facilitating that session. Housekeeping, once I'll be finished presenting a section, I will pause and let you ask any questions you may have. Again, because we know there's a lot of content, I think it's key that if you see something as I'm presenting that you want to discuss during that section, I will pause. You can feel free to put it into the chat or raise your hand to pick up the mic. I'll be here to answer that. And again, we want to make sure that you can answer questions that are key to you, that are important to you. We'll still aim to have that Q&A at the end, depending on the time we have and how many questions will there be. But again, feel free to ask a question during the section during that time at the section. And one more thing is that there is nothing new in what we're presenting. So there is no magic pill for attraction and retention. It's more providing a central place and putting everything into perspective so you can make a meaningful connection and actions for attracting and retaining bilingual resources in your organization. So where we are today, and to put things into context, the social role of the employer organization has increased. So there is a lot of equity and social justice movement and expectations. There is also expectation on workplace well-being, right? So we have had the different movements of the last few years, whether it's Me Too, Black Lives Matters, there's been a COVID, the crisis, where people have started working more remotely in some areas, some others not. So, and there is also clear definition and delineation between skills and position. So skills is what you bring as a person. The position is what the organization needs. There is a fierce war for talent, and there are also social, economic, and political pressures in the healthcare field. And I can just nod to the Canadian Health Act, which has the objective of providing access to health without financial harm to Canadians. So organization and the health need to navigate all of those. So in order to do that, what is key is that the organization plans strategically. And to use the expression, if you fail to plan, you have planned to fail. So you need to have functional planning within the organization to ensure that your objectives are met. So in its simplest form, you will look at your people, how they're structured, the skills and competencies you need. You will also provide them tools to do the work, and you will establish processes that will deliver outcomes. So that also leads to the strategic HR planning, which has to be in line with that. So strategic HR planning has evolved due to what we have mentioned, the social context and economical context as well. And it also includes talent management. And within talent management, we will find the key for attracting and retaining bilingual resources. And again, we'll get to that in the next section. But how do you create that alignment with organizational goal? Well, we have what we call the 4 Ps. So, you need to make sure that your vision, mission, goals, and values that drive the culture are aligned, and that you also foster a culture of, in this case, bilingualism, and ideally through what we call IDEA principles. So IDEA stands for inclusiveness, diversity, equity, and accessibility. And now just a note, in French, we use belonging for the A, so we wanted to have a single acronym here. At CL, we use DEIB, which is the same letters as diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and belonging to reflect the A in French. So bear in mind that even if we're talking here about accessibility, belonging is also part of this. So our point of view is that to have a positive impact into attraction and retention, organization must act on the different areas of the employee life cycle, as I was mentioning earlier, and that as part of their talent management approach. This can be a simple thinking exercise where you sit down and think, okay, what is my staff going through as they interact in the organization? Or it can be something more complex, including a project management skill that you may need to apply to that. So it depends on your organization size and level of maturity. But as you can see in these sections and in the section of the resources, what we try to highlight is that you can start again from anywhere where you feel that you need your attention. Again, it's not linear. These are the areas of talent management. These are the facets of the dimension of the employee life cycle. But in your organization, there is probably something that you say, well, I'm good at planning, I'm very good at attracting, I may need to do something better in onboarding, as an example. So when we talk about planning, so here what you have is two sides of a same model. Now I'm going to speak to as a one model, but what you see on the left side is how you do it as a gap analysis. On the right side is the question specifically that you need to ask yourself internally in the organization. So the first piece is to establish a strategic direction of the organization. So we've just talked about planning and aligning. So here, what we have is, is defining the organization vision, mission, and goals as we just described in the introduction. So ideally, you provide bilingual services that are integrated into your vision, so you can arrive concrete approach, action plans, and activities that will guide and support the achievement of these objectives, providing bilingual services. The next step that you need to do is to analyze your current needs and available versus available resources. So you need those skills. What in its current form in the organization, as well as the socio-demographic data they have, what's the labor supply, what are the skills that are available? Do you have currently bilingual staff hired? Is there bilingual staff available in the market? And this analysis should include not only the number of staff and their skills, but also factors that are related to demographic distribution, particularly important in workforce planning. If you have a large number of staff approaching retirement age, for example, or if you have a large number of young entrants from the workforce whose turnover rates exceed what you need in the short term. It's also provide a post on the idea, inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility, and whether action is needed to ensure a representative workforce. And finally, it will give you a snapshot of the available time that can be developed. The third step here will be to define future needs and resources, reviewing your plans and objectives to be met, your forecast, the future workforce composition of the organization, what you will need in a couple of years, including bilingual staff again, and required to deliver those services. You need to tie these forecasts. This forecast must take into account a wide range of internal and external factors. So those are the questions that we're asking to the left side. What are the anticipated changes in the labor market, the economy, social changes, future occupation tools, among others, and internally, how do you post your jobs for that? How your employees are networking, how do you grow them, what the market has to offer, and so on. So then you compare the two previous points, right? So what you have, what you need, and you do your gap analysis. So it's the difference between the current and future needs, and that will give you some scenarios as to what I need to do in order to make sure that I can bridge that gap, if you will. And then you establish talent management approach. This step will focus on how close the gaps in the current workforce and the future needs through the recruitment, training, development, and also involves developing an approach to meeting identified needs that also addresses future needs and incorporate, again, as we were talking, aspect of the idea, social justice, environment, and bilingual services offering. So I'm gonna pause here because I've been talking for a little while and see if there are any questions or comments. Perfect. So I'll jump into attracting and retaining section. Again, we will have some time at the end if you have questions that you want to ask, or if something pops up on your mind as we go. So again, attracting and retaining, you know the cycle. You need to go in the market, post a job posting. Hopefully, people apply, people come in, you hire them, and so on. One key to keep in mind is that retention starts at sourcing, right? So the end is, the way you're approaching people, the way you're branding your organization will have that impact, right? And I'll let you look into the key factors of employer brand and also some attraction activities that you can do. But here, what I wanted to provide is a little bit of an overview of a simple tool. You may already have something similar in your organization. You may already have exactly this or not. And this is besides what we call job families. It's more about segmenting your role. The idea of this tool is simply to say, well, these are the 4 types of role that most organizations will have, and how do you approach them when you're trying to attract people. So you have to assess the role in its impact into the organization and the scarcity of skills, right? So it's increasing as you move up or move to the right. If we look at the roles specifically, how we have categorized them here is you have expert roles, right? These require a rare combination of skills that have strong impact in the organization and that are not so easy to find. The healthcare industry, for example, would be neurosurgical specialists, and individuals like these, I'm not talking about them specifically, but the individuals in this category will tend to seek roles in organizations where they can make an impact by contributing their expertise and in turn strengthen their own personal brand. And what do you do to attract this candidate? Well, you need to use some specific personalized messaging and content that emphasizes the alignment between the organization's values and goals and the individual aspirations. And again, we're looking into that 4 Ps that we quickly glance over, which you align everything from your philosophies, your policies, your practices, and the day-to-day activities that you do. And attracting and hiring in this category also may require additional efforts in time and also some financial investment. So for example, it may be so that you need to use a specialized recruitment firm because you don't know where to reach for those people, right? Or you may need to do some extra, pay for extra ads, whatever you're posting your roles. Then if you look at specialist roles, they have less of an individual impact, but they're still difficult to find. And let me just clarify something because I'm talking about impact. All roles are important. What we're talking is the impact of the role as when you do an action, right? So we understand that some roles may have, for example, a little financial impact. Some others may have a higher financial impact. To use that as a dimension, but there are many different ways of impacting the organization. So back to specialist roles, an example of this will be roles in nursing or laboratory technology. These individuals are generally looking for environments that allow them to grow professionally, and they're hard to find, so it's important to emphasize the career pathway to attract them. Then you have professional roles, which is relatively easy to fill and have a high organizational impact. So example will be mid-level managers, non-clinical specialists, or even consulting roles. They bring some value to good value to the organization, and to attract them require less focused effort, but more of an employer branding. So why are you coming to work for us? And then you have the support roles that the skills required for those are they're more available in the market. Examples are administrative roles, support functions. And when hired from this role, the investment you need to do is making sure you discern about the skills and motivation of individuals, right? You may have them available, but are they a good fit for this organization? Before moving to onboarding, any question on attracting and retaining? I'm getting excited, so that's why I'm going fast.
Maybe while people warm up with their questions, I'll throw one at you, Maurice. So when we're specifically looking with the angle of recruiting bilingual human resources, how does that impact either the scarcity of the skills, and could it maybe change the approach that you would have to take if let's say you're trying to hire for a support role, but you need that person to have a bilingual skill set? Can that have an impact? And then maybe you have to use more of a specialist approach because of that scarcity of resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And great question. And yes. So again, I think what adds to the definitely bilingual will add to the scarcity of the skill. So yes, you may have, I'm going to use your own example. Yes, you have an admin role that will fall under support, but if you need somebody bilingual, then you definitely move into specialists, right? Into the specialist side, because whether we like it or not, even if the role is just support, there is a specialty into the role. So when you're assessing that, when you're trying to attract those people, you need to refer back to what motivates a specialist to come work for us, and how do I need to reach for them, right? Just to not to repeat what I was saying, but they're looking for environment that allow them to grow, right? To learn new stuff. So they're hard to find, but you need to show them career pathways to attract them. And again, these are generalization. There are definitely things that can be more adapted to different organizations, depending on, for example, where you are located, right? Because if you're in more remote areas, it might be more difficult versus if you are close to Montreal, for example, right? So,
how should an organization tackle the need for a particular skill with the need to fill a position? And the example is lack of workforce right now.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding the question well, is you have two different sort of needs. One is a specialization, but it's also the need of the actual need of filling the position with a lack of workforce. So I will go back a little bit to what I was saying. There is unfortunately no magic pill at the moment. Everybody's under the same war of talent. But that being said, and this is kind of the angle of this resource, the goal is for organizations to put their best foot forward, if you will. So what's your branding? What's your EVP, and how you communicate that to the people you are targeting, and also making targeted efforts. Sometimes it's again, some organizations are more formalized than others into their attracting and hiring processes. Some other are, hey, we just need people, so we're going to post. But the idea is to make deliberate decision in the activities you do in order to be able to say, okay, I'm targeting this type of people. I'm doing, I can do job hunt myself, as a recruiter within our organization, say, okay, I'm going to look into LinkedIn, for example, see if I can find somebody. I'm going to go and ask people in my network. So it's really about those, deliberate actions that you take in order to go and attract somebody, and what's in it for them to go into your organization, right? So that's an exercise that sometimes needs a little bit of definition. We know why we were working in our organization. We know, for example, why I love healthcare is because I'm helping people. I'm contributing to people's health, but how we communicate that to others will come down to be the key.
I see a new one from Pauline Babineau. If I may, my take on Lisa's question is, what do you do when you need to fill a position urgently, but need a specific skill set, such as language ability? We don't always have time to wait. I think it's sort of that we need a warm body now. But we also, to ensure the service delivery, but really that person would require French language capacity or bilingual capacity.
Absolutely. The experience I can perhaps share with you is, and again, this is specific to, it's in healthcare, specific to a context, and hopefully can be replicated where you are in your context. But for example, I remember a good friend of mine, he's a pharmacist, and for a number of years he joined, I don't remember exactly what the name is, but a sort of organization that provides on-demand pharmacies for other pharmacies that needed somebody to cover shifts, for example. And now I know there is debate about this, but I do know in Quebec there are some organizations, for example, for nurses that have something similar, that it's private sector nurses, if you will. So if you have that ability to reach out to those organizations temporarily to say, I need to fill in this position for a time being while we recruit and try to find somebody, I think that if you really need somebody now, that's what you need to do. You need to assess, because it's temporary, do I really go with, do I need them to be bilingual? Do I not need them to be bilingual? Can the organization that I'm asking for the service provide me bilingual resources? Again, that's definitely a decision that needs to be made on a case-by-case basis, but as an idea on how to cover that will be the fastest and the soonest. Now, again, I need to go back to the current market now. All the industries, all sectors are facing the shortage of talent, right? So people are changing industries, people are changing jobs, people are quitting, they're coming to other organizations. So again, what do you do in the long term to make sure that you keep your people and then you can attract those more? It's again, that's the question, and we're trying to provide you some tools and tips here for fast solution. I think it will be to go to temporary help, right? So.
And if I may add, with the bilingual services lens, sometimes when positions remain unfilled or we need to fill that vacancy now, it's looking also at the team-based approach to see what are the current capacity within the team and how can those be utilized. So if you do have some bilingual capacity within that team structure, or if there's somebody from another team that could be reallocated to make sure that you have that continuity of French language services offer throughout various shifts. There are some ways of looking about it so that you maintain the capacity, but through a team-based approach and not just one specific position, while you continue to look to recruit and find the ideal person with the competency and the skill set that is required for that position.
So good questions. I'm going to move to the onboarding piece, but you'll see one thing you'll see, and I think I like where Geneviève was going with bringing somebody from internally as well, somebody that has the competencies, but there is also, and we'll see this into the development piece. There may be also, how can I develop internal workforce to increase and grow bilingual capacity, for example. So let's talk about onboarding. It is, oh, give me 1 second, I'm not seeing my stuff here, it disappeared. There we go. So on onboarding, it is possible to start the integration process as soon as the offer is accepted, and therefore the official start date, right? In this situation, the goal is to develop the relationship with the organization. So you do this before the onboarding, right? So you can invite the new staff member to visit the facility, right? That can for example, if they're relocated, this may include a house hunting trip and a visit to the local community. You can send information about the organization in advance. You can include the benefits, information, or charts, company literature. You can send a package with useful and work-related items to the organization, some goodies sometimes. You can pair new staff members with onboarding guides. And guides here, I mean people who will mentor them a bit or help a buddy who can make contact before the first day, answer questions. For example, what is the dress code? What to expect on the first day? Where do staff tend to eat? On the first day, on the onboarding side, and as you can see here, there is 3 phases. You provide the new staff orientation, which is a more formalized event, right? So paperwork signing, this is our structure, this is what we do. You review the administrative documents, you review the relevant procedures, and finally you provide all the mandatory training. And what we recommend is that in order not to overload new staff with information, you can spread that over several days, even weeks if possible. And last is building the foundation. So start learning the foundational organizational culture, missions, start experimenting what the brand of your organization is, what the value proposition is, right? So why is it good to work with the organization? So it's a time for that new staff to experience that, and you need to convey that message consistently. They're learning a new environment. This can take several months, right? And also you need to consider the virtual work today, right? If people are working remote or if people are moving in. So the secret of onboarding is that this is what will create your lasting relationship with employee. This is more into the retaining aspect, right? So once they've been attracted, once they've been hired, once you've signed that contract, this will set the foundation of how you keep them for the long term. Now, support and development. The word today is changing pretty fast, and we've seen it in the last few years. So it's essential that people stay current in their field. So having, supporting and developing talent allows organizations to keep the required skill in-house. But it also serves as attraction because you may sell to somebody, hey, I can develop you in this field. Somebody who's interested in learning, in working in French and expanding their skills, for example, if French is not their first language, or simply being able to work in a bilingual environment. That's a selling point, right? But you need to have that and account for that. You need to be able to show, and how you do that is that you bring that into your support and development program. So you may have formalized training or a learning and development program, or you may do that organically depending on how you're structuring your resources. But either way, here you see some ideas that are common for all type of organizations and can boost and support the support that you provide to resources, right? So do you have translated forms and documents? Do you have language support tools? I know there exists some, AI tools out there that are good for, well, your iPhone can translate something nowadays, right? So now, is it the perfect translation? No, but those may be tools to get by quickly. Access to language training and training in both languages, integration and support within mentoring, coaching, and language collaborations. And then there are some activities as well. We have coaching, mentoring, development plans. We're going to talk about the 9 bugs grid under performance management, but they're connected, and you'll see why at that point in time. Then you have other opportunities such as cross-training, temporary assignments, job shadowing, job rotation if possible, succession planning, external online training, and so on. Again, these are things that can be explored into the workshop, but the idea here is for you to look at what do I have in order to support my bilingual resources or develop them into enhancing their bilingual skills. And again, questions on support and development.
I don't see any at this point.
Thank you, Geneviève. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time into engagement and performance. It will provide you a small tool to look at. So at the level of individual engagement, people have different reasons that may drive them to stay in organization, which are primarily social and emotional, right? So ideally, it's the peer and the manager's relationship that they have. So they're adequate. They also have support for, you have and provide support for bilingual staff members. You have recognition for your staff members' efforts. There's a sense of belonging among staff. You have development opportunities, you have flexibility, you have matching tasks with their responsibilities and available resources. Again, what the key is, and what we cannot stress enough, is the alignment from that vision, the values, culture, objective organization, as the impact the engagement the most. And how do you align all of those into your practices? That's what will drive your people to stay in. Remember at the beginning, we have that 4 Ps, small tool, small model that can help you draw further connection towards your talent management initiatives. So the link here that we're presenting is the connection between engagement and performance. And there exists lots of literature about this topic if you Google it, but in essence, the experience of the user of services has an impact on your organizational objectives. And we've seen this in healthcare, where we're trying to always improve the experience of the user. Now, what's key here is that the personal experience, the experience of the people who work, has also an impact on the user experience. So here you can see that connection between your personnel, user, and the objectives of the organization. So acting on the employee life cycle areas, as we have seen, and this is what we're exploring, with an alignment and a clear why we're doing things, will benefit this. So interestingly, if you look at the 4 areas in this illustration, you have the same themes again. We're talking about recruitment, engagement, development, and recognition of people. So that's something that we're working hard to make sure that this presentation also is well aligned to what we're saying. But again, it's really the connection on all of these areas that will help you provide a good experience to your employees, good user experience, and then meet your organizational objectives. So we're looking at how are our activities leading us to the objectives after you have looked at the planning, how we structure organization based on our objectives. So measuring performance is a way of knowing that you're getting closer to your objectives through the effectiveness of your activities. And there are various levels on which you can measure your organizational performance. You have community and sectorial level. So how am I performing in my community and the area I'm at, or within my industry or sector? Then you have the own organizational level. How is the organization performing? Are we meeting our targets? Are we achieving our objectives? And then there's also the individual level, the infamous performance appraisal. Interestingly, we are good at looking at the organizational one, also comparing against the community one or the sectoral one with programs and how we try to measure. We, however, most of the time don't pay as close attention at the individual one, right? So yes, ironically, we will have an organizational program that yes, we aim to be able to assess everybody, but we don't really look into the person itself. And it's the one that has the most impact on the organization. So we will, as I said, we build programs for individual, but the programs without the individual will not work or yield the results by themselves. So paying attention, even if it's a little bit, to the people's performance with an honest and genuine growth mindset will go a long way. So even incremental growth for one individual, if you multiply that by the number of people that work in an organization, then you get an exponential result. So little changes, little improvement in people will help your organization more than just looking at how can I improve or change a program. Now, yes, they have an impact on people, but again, you need really to look at that individual piece. And how we do that, I will perhaps present what seems to be one of the most complex tools that we have for performance management. However, there's a simple way to describe it. And if you haven't seen it before, is that you want to group people to their full potential in order to enhance their performance. And this is the 2 axes you have. You want to move them diagonally into this axis, right? So you want them to go from low performance, low potential, to bring it to the maximum they can. And how can this work? So you establish a performance criteria to assess people. It can be numerically, or it can be with any criteria you want. And that will place them within a box in these axes, right? So For example, in this case, you assess that the person is in box 8 because they need guidance to progress within the same level. In order to do that, this is a development connection. You need to set ambitious goals. What will happen is these boxes provide you a quick description of the current state and what actions you need to have them towards the next step. So at the next assessment, the person has hopefully moved to another box, right? And then you have, again, the same principle. This is the current state, maybe because they're for cross-training at their level, but they need also coaching on some areas, including people management, to move to the next step. And the year after, hopefully they have reached their full potential, meets and exceed present expectation with ease, and have a good vision for their role and problem solving and self-motivation. Again, you can adapt this to your organization, but the key here is to how you make people progress. And this gives you already, when you sit down and prepare this gives you the roadmap or a career path for these people. Obviously, you have 9 boxes that are presented here. And to make it even simpler, you may not even need the 9 boxes. Simply, how can you chart people across the lines that I was presenting at the beginning? How you can make them move diagonally, right? So this is simply to give you a more of a methodological approach, but you can even do this organically. Again, if you'd like to explore these tools further, we have the upcoming workshop on November 10th. So hopefully people will choose this one, and we can make sure that it matches what you need.
Yeah, I was just going to take you back to the onboarding stage, Maurice. We have a question from Id, and the question is, how do you strike the balance between the need to meet operational requirements and role demands and the capacity building initiatives during the phase of the onboarding?
Excellent question. And I think it's a selling game. We need to sell organizations that onboarding cannot be rushed, because if somebody is not equipped to well perform their job, they're going to do a disservice to the organization, and then they're going to leave. We understand that sometimes, organizations want people to come, and hit the ground running right away. I think it's a balancing act, and this is where most of the time, any person in charge of onboarding, whether it's an HR professional, whether it's somebody, somebody else, needs to really be able to convey that message. People don't know what they don't know, and we need to provide them the best tools to succeed. And actually, there is data that shows that when people will leave an organization, will be within the first year. Why? Most of the time because they don't have either a good onboarding process or there's not a good fit with their managers. So again, it's really about selling the why we need to take time, but also thinking in the onboarding process, how can I make it a little bit faster? How can I make it more efficient? In this example that we're providing, how to spend in 180 days, we are not suggesting to have 180 days of probation onboarding period where they don't do work. Actually, from the first day they can start. It's just that you need some specific times to meet with them and review how they're progressing and provide them the tools and readapt. And I'm conscious of time, so I'll move a little bit faster on the last 2 sections, understanding that, and you'll see these are pretty simple. Here we're talking about promotion and recognition, right? And here promotion is related to promoting behavior, promoting culture, promoting values, promoting what you need. Remembering that recognition contributes to the sense of well-being and satisfaction of people, right? It provides a positive work environment, help with engagement, promote the adoption of certain behaviors. So you need to find the recognition that works best for your organization. Again, you may have a formalized one, you may not. Just to put things into perspective, you see here the 4 dimensions of recognition. So it's you recognize the person, you recognize the result, the efforts, the work practice. You can provide financial and non-financial recognition, and you decide the frequency. And hopefully in organization we do all of them, right? So, and to the left you have some ideas on how to promote language skills, right? So encouraging language training, supporting by matching with other bilingual resources, creating opportunity to maintain French language and bilingual communications. Again, you have to sit down and think, how can I do this in my organization? But these are the first ideas, and then you can ask yourself some questions onto how to make that happen. I'm gonna go to the conclusion and opening up for whatever time we have for questions. So we at SIA use these 5 dimensions to look at organizations, right? So these dimensions is what defines how people interact with the organization through their life cycle. So you can approach them the same way we have described earlier into how you analyze them. What are the needs for each one of them? How do you plan? How do you approach? And then you align that with your organizational objectives. So But also what's key here is that these 5 dimensions defines your culture, right? And if you are promoting an environment of for bilingual resources, then how do you embed that, that skills and those activities into different work processes? So we always try to promote doing things at their simplest form, understanding that some environments are more complex than others. But the message we try to convey is that to attract and retain bilingual resources is, again, to embed those related activities into the employee life cycle. What is the form of a process, from a process perspective, or from an employee experience perspective? So the key here really is if you look at that and put in, okay, so this is an activity, this is something I need to develop my bilingual resources, this is something to recognize them, this is something to attract them, that will maximize the effectiveness of any of your program, and that also promotes bilingualism. There we go. 2 minutes per question. I'm happy to say more if need be, but I will leave that to our host.
I'll ask the question that was from Adrian. Adrian said, "What kind of key performance indicators could be set up to measure service is provided in both official languages?"
Mm-hmm. Very good question. I would say, I'm not going to give you a numerical value, but I would say, for example, you can use your user satisfaction, for example, right? And in those, you can ask a question about, did you receive proper bilingual services? Are you satisfied with your bilingual services? I'm a big fan of the NPS and Net Promoter Score too, where you can sometimes ask more specific questions. But I would say, first of all, it's looking into, did you receive a service in your language of preference? And second, were you satisfied with them? I think those 2 will be the starting point. Then if you have other elements that you need to, for example, report on them that you want to see, then you can go down and ask. So I would say as a tool, I would say perhaps a survey. And survey can take many different forms. It can be something written, it can be verbal, but again, it's making sure that you have that. You can also look at the user's demographic. If, for example, you have a lot of bilingual users coming to your organization, it might be an indicator that they may be receiving bilingual services. Now, I don't want to make the correlation between the 2, but those are things you can look at. If you're providing more services, do you have an increase in bilingual users, for example?
Thank you. We have a question from Lara. Lara would like to, she's asking, can you please repeat the point about the employees who leave the organization due to onboarding or lack of connection with management?
So what I was saying at that point in time is the reason that people, actually what I was saying is what people stay in an organization is for social and emotional aspects, right? So how they interact, the relation they have with peers and managers, they have adequate support, recognition from their peers, a sense of belonging, development opportunities, flexibility. They match tasks and responsibilities to what they want, what they are hoping to accomplish at work.
I think you also mentioned, Maurice, that for the onboarding process, sometimes if it's too rushed and you don't really get that integration within the organization, that can lead to high turnover rate. And we also know that most people leave their managers and not their organization.
Yes. True. I remember mentioning that, yes, during the onboarding, yes. And I think that came from the question, how do you balance the need for having somebody being quickly up and running versus the time of onboarding? Yes. Again, what I said, I think, was that you see the literature, most people leave within the first year because they either didn't get along with their managers, not a good fit, or they were not onboarded properly.
I see that we're over our time now, but I have another question. If any one of you wants to stick around and listen to the answer. And the question is from Id again. Thank you, Id. What are the examples of non-financial recognition that employees find valuable, especially for nonprofits?
Good question. I do remember a few ideas there. For example, well, on the non-financial things that can go a long way. For example, just I'm going to start from the easy one. That thank you, a letter saying thank you. Perhaps a broader thinking during a meeting. So some people are be mindful. Some people get maybe shy being recognized in public, but those public recognition may go a good way as well. Listening, and this is interesting, but listening to ideas and opinions of people, right? Sometimes it's just having them telling you something. You do show genuinely that you consider that. Asking comments about a project or something. Sometimes it might be just work balance, however they can find that. Maybe sometimes it can be something as it has a financial impact, but sometimes days off, right? So there are lots of little ways that we don't think of because we're wired to think about, oh, I need to go and buy something or provide this, but it might simply be in the way we do things that people will find, oh, I'm recognized. They value my opinion, they value my contributions, and they acknowledge that I've been working overtime, so they give me a day off, right? So.
Thank you very much for all of your presentation and your passion about the topic and the information provided again during the webinar. Thank you very much for your participation today, all of you. Thank you very much to Maurice and Geneviève for a very informative presentation. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.